There are many elements in The Conjuring that uses physical objects to symbolize non-physical things, or just general foreshadowing towards spiritual issues in the film. I want to talk about a few, but first I think the promotional art is worth mentioning. The art for the film, while creepy, also hints at the dangerous nature of both the physical and the non-physical. A solitary noose hangs from the tree in the backyard, the suicide tree. While the house itself can be seen behind a noose, the house looks dangerous. You'd have to be suicidal to go in there. But there's more to it. The hangman's noose was seen by Lorraine in the movie to have the spirit attached to the location. The noose isn't visible to anyone else, nor is the spirit hanging from it. There is a non-physical entity in a physical location. This theme of physical versus non-physical runs through the entire movie. It's quickly emphasized by the dog's refusal to enter her new home. But there are several elements I'd like to discuss. These are the parallels with the opening scenes, the animals, the hide-and-seek game the kids and their mother play, Cindy's sleepwalking, and the use of wind. Near the middle of the film, the Warrens are shown debunking a supposed paranormal experience.
Right now it's just my weight. We take the water coming off of the pipe combined with the wind coming through the broken window, these boards are going to expand and rub against each other. You heard it all through the house because of these pipes leading to the radiator.
So this place isn't haunted?
No, it rarely is. Yeah, there's usually always some kind of rational explanation.
This is after the opening scenes have already established a real possession attempt by Annabelle. It's important to remember the Annabelle situation as a failed possession, because it parallels what happens with the parents later. Both the fake haunting and real possession combine in the case of the parents to emphasize the serious nature of what's happening to that family. When Carolyn shows the Warrens throughout the house, several elements of what she's explaining to them can be tied to earlier elements from the Annabelle experience. Some are new, however. The parents describe a chill in the air and a bad smell. Both are elements that are not previously discussed in the movie. However, they also mention two important tie-ins with the Annabelle situation. First, their pictures are being affected by spirits. This was very clearly seen in the opening scenes. Annabelle defaced the girls' pictures. Second, the banging of doors. This was also clearly seen in the opening scenes, and Ed Warren mentions a plot element that ties the two scenes together. The knocking in triplicate.
Well, that's to keep those doors from banging at night. Otherwise, it's like all night long, just like that.
Does it come in threes?
Yeah?
Stops at dawn?
Uh-huh.
Well, sometimes it's meant as an insult to the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
This is interesting. As I mentioned in the first part, Annabelle knocked in 3 the last time she was revealed, before the Warrens took over the story. Later on, when Lorraine is explaining to the parents that a dark entity has attached itself to their family, it can be understood that this situation is far more serious than the Annabelle situation ever was. With Annabelle, the girls had a spirit trying to get into them, but ultimately it was relegated to a physical object, the doll. However, in the parents' case, the spirit has already set its sights on them and seemingly made some progress. All the problems the girls had with Annabelle are met by the parents with their house. But strange and scary issues have emerged that Annabelle hadn't progressed to. And as the audience, we're aware of that. However, there is hope. With the picture that had been knocked down repeatedly, Lorraine is able to see a loving memory of the parents at the beach. Interestingly, this picture only shows clouds in the background. It's almost a heavenly image. This memory is important to Carolyn and will serve as a means of countering the demonic influence later on in the movie. Like many horror movies before it, The Conjuring plays with the innocence of pets to show that there's an evil influence in the house. The parents' dog Sadie refuses to enter the new home, so the parents leave the dog outside. I also wonder if this cross shape that falls on the dog is a foreshadowing to a little later in the movie when the dog dies. Later, when the parents are going to sleep, presumably, their first night in the home, the dog is barking up at the parents frantically. It's a high-angle shot of the dog. I always wondered what the dog was trying to tell them. Was the dog warning them? Was the dog just mindlessly barking at something it saw, a spirit? Well, they never find out. In the morning, Alice wants to find Sadie. She goes outside while the parents talk about the clocks in the kitchen. Then we hear a scream. Sadie has been killed. The other use of animals in this film is interesting. Birds are hitting the house and killing themselves. This is a creepy thing, but I'm not entirely sure the symbolism behind it. Doves have been used in religious symbols and imagery for peace and holiness, but I'm not sure what the point of the birds running into the home are. Were they helping the spirits in attacking the parents? Because it seems to be that case towards the end of the movie. Or were they just killing the birds, just like they did for Sadie? The sound for the birds at the end is one of crows, but the birds shown are pigeons. So maybe it's a reversal of the Holy Spirit thing. Instead of a Holy Spirit, you have a demonic one. Instead of a dove, you have a crow or a pigeon. In typical fashion, the children have a game they like to play. One kid blindfolds herself and looks for the others throughout the house, with only hearing alone, listening for their claps. The rules seem clear. The girl who is it has to find the other girls without the use of her eyes. She can say clap when she needs to find them, and the girls have to respond with a clap. Christine plays the game as it first. And then the second time the game is shown on screen, Carolyn Perrin, played by Lily Taylor, is blindfolded and spun around by her daughter. Interestingly, in this scene, there is a paper human figure hanging from the ceiling. This perfectly parallels the hanging spirit that Lorraine sees later, but Carolyn can't see. This figure remains in all scenes in this room, but it was interestingly introduced in this one scene, when Carolyn is blindfolded. Also in this scene, Carolyn runs into a banister while searching for her daughter. She's also been developing bruises while she sleeps. In the former case, she's physically been attacked by the house. In the latter, something non-physical in the house is attacking her while she's most vulnerable. Both cases are threatening, the audience knows this, but one is more subtle, running into things in the house. It further establishes the danger of the physical location. The blindfolding is, of course, another element of the game that's interesting to explore. Sure, the kids could be trusted to close their eyes, but clearly they would cheat. I certainly would have when I was a kid. Instead, they physically can't see and have to rely on the sound of claps to echolocate, almost, where their siblings have gone. It's interesting to note the obvious use of being unable to see as a parallel to being unable to see spirits. These girls are playing, and they can't even see the spirits that are watching them. The first girl to wear a blindfold was Christine, and she's the one who sees a spirit standing in the corner of her room.
Do you see it?
See what?
There's someone behind the door.
What?
There's someone standing over there.
I don't see anyone.
right at us. Nancy, don't. Nancy.
No, look. Look, there's no one here. See? Ugh, it's that smell again.
Oh my God. It's standing right behind you.
Her sister is unable to see it, and Christine is paralyzed in fear. She then shrieks. Her mother and father run in to find out what happened, and she tells them that she heard the spirit talking to her. She is the only girl who wasn't named in the tracking shot during the moving scene at the beginning of the movie. In addition to the game they play, Cindy's sleepwalking is a huge connection between the physical and non-physical dichotomy. Her sleepwalking could be seen as a connection between the physical and non-physical because she's acting in a pseudo-spiritual manner. No one can see what she's reacting to in her sleep or why she's doing what she's doing. In a similar vein to Carolyn's running into the banister, Cindy hits the wardrobe with her head. Her sister tells her father
I've never seen her do this before.
she's experiencing a new danger unseen in the previous forms of her sleepwalking. Later on, when the investigation is in full force, they use Cindy to see what's going on with some of the spirits. Interesting, again, is the high angle from above the door. As mentioned before, it's almost as if the thing keeping the two men out is far stronger than both of them combined. Once they get into the room, Ed uses a UV light of some kind to find Cindy's fingerprints. This is similar to how his wife can see impressions or memories of people's lives. Both of them are dealing with the unseen, but Ed's compensating for his lack of natural ability by using technology. This scene ultimately moves the plot along by connecting the music box and the spirits with the basement and the noose. The last element of the movie I wanted to talk about was the use of wind in the film. This is something I noticed during my second viewing of the movie. It's used in religious imagery to symbolize the Holy Spirit, and the spiritual connection is obvious. The wind is an unseen force. During the move-in, Cindy seeks out and hangs up her wind chime. As the influence grows, it increases in severity. After Sadie was killed, Roger wakes up at his desk. He heard some kind of noise. He goes to look for it, and we see very clearly a white curtain moving in the wind. It's a gentle breeze, but it's also paralleled later. When Carolyn confronts the Warrens about seeing their home, the wind is blowing pretty hard. It isn't hurricane-level winds, but it is noticeable. Carolyn appeals to their humanity and asks them to take a look, and Lorraine agrees. Ultimately, this element culminates in a scene where Lorraine is outside and the wind is blowing. This, of course, leads to the ending scenes of the movie.